Hi, I'm Andrea, and I am here today with a video about the top 10 tips for differentiating for gifted learners. I'm currently working on my gifted endorsement, and today I wanted to share some of the things that I'm learning with you guys. So tip number one is always focus on your learning objectives. When you're differentiating, you don't want to just kind of randomly pull this and this and this. The differentiation tasks you plan for your gifted learners need to be tied into those same learning goals, those same objectives. So as you're planning different activities for your students of varying ability levels to do, you need to make sure that they're all going to be focused on those same learning objectives. Tip number two is about assessment. Assessment needs to be ongoing. In order to differentiate successfully for your students, you need to know what they know, and you need to know what they can do. So pre-assessments are going to go a long way. If your student already knows everything that you're trying to teach in your unit, that's a good place where you can compact curriculum and come up with an alternative assignment. And then ongoing formative assessments throughout your unit, again, are going to tell you if you need to go back and reteach something, maybe get your gifted learners back on the regular track, or maybe pull a student out of maybe the main group and put them in a small group working on something independently. Tip number three is you need to be flexible. Differentiation is really a different mindset from traditional teaching, where everybody's not doing the same thing, everybody's not working on the same thing, everybody's maybe not even being graded on the same tasks. So as teachers, we need to let go of some of that control so that our kids have some of the freedom that they need to become autonomous learners, to learn self-management skills. This might mean you have students working in centers. It might mean a variety of groupings, that you might have some students working independently. You might have small groups, you might have teacher-directed groups. It might mean that you need to relax time restraints and kind of be more flexible with those deadlines, so that students don't have that constant time pressure pressing down on them on their learning. Tip number four is to focus on higher levels of blooms. Since gifted students typically can remember things quite easily, they don't need a lot of drill to memorize things. They need a lot less time on activities on those low levels of blooms, the understand and remember tasks, and they need more apply, analyze, evaluate, and create tasks. They need to be doing higher level thinking to develop their great academic capability. Tip number five is to differentiate content. This might be giving them more complex content, greater variety, changing how you organize it, giving students more choice, more self-selected to kind of tailor it to their interests, or speeding up the rate of learning. This is really easy to do when you have an honors class. You can kind of change your content versus how you do your regular class, but when you've got those real high achieving students within your regular classes who maybe already know everything that you're teaching in that unit, you might need to differentiate content for them within your class, maybe with a web quest or an independent study. Tip number six is to differentiate product. This might be the easiest way to start differentiating, because there's lots and lots of different ways that students can demonstrate what they learn. And so giving them a choice in what they make, whether that be a video, a slideshow, a podcast, a poster, how they present, whether they do writing or speaking, that is a good way to give students some options in how they demonstrate their learning. Alright, tip number seven is differentiate process. So first we have product, second we have content, and third we have process. So the learning process is how we present the material to students, what questions we ask, what activities students complete. So again, gifted students don't need a ton of time to memorize information, but they do need practice to apply critical thinking skills. So they typically need to work on making decisions about how to use information, giving evidence, justifying responses, rather than just memory activities. I think the tip about what questions are asked is really interesting, because a lot of us, when we do that circling questions, we know we have those high flyer students that we can ask the why questions to or the who questions to, and we have other students that we know that we're going to give an either or question or a yes or no question. So I think a lot of this is things that we're already doing, and we can just become more aware of what it is that we're doing so that we can do it more consistently and more purposefully. Tip number 8 is to differentiate your learning environment. So gifted students really thrive in learner-centered environments, so very interactive, focused on student interests, environments where students can talk more, where they have more open-ended tasks, where it's not just right or wrong, match the Spanish to the English, but more communicative tasks, explorative tasks, inductive learning, and where the teacher is not the final authority, which again is a big paradigm shift, but I think it's very important. We live in the information age, and our students have access to tons and tons of information in the palm of their hand with just a Google search or asking Siri. They can learn those vocabulary words, they can look them up. We are no longer the arbitrators of knowledge, but where our value is not going to go away is in teaching students how to use knowledge, how to use those online tools, how to determine if an online resource is true or false, if it's fact or opinion, looking for the bias. And so as we adjust our learning environment to be better suited for gifted learners, going back to some of those previous tips, we need to be flexible, we need to focus on those higher levels of thinking, and not just on, here's your vocabulary list, you need to memorize these words for the quiz on Friday. Tip number 9 is a way to differentiate your learning environment, which is vary your grouping. So sometimes it's good to group gifted students all together homogeneously and see how high they can fly when they're working with their peers. See how creative they can be. On the other hand, it's also useful to sometimes group gifted students with students of other ability levels. One, this gives students a chance to develop their leadership skills, and 2, that can help them work on their social skills, which might not always be as strong as their peers. Lastly, my 10th tip is to promote independence. School is about preparing students for life, and gifted students are our leaders of tomorrow, so they need a chance to develop independent learning habits in school. So do things like promote self-reflection, help students learn from mistakes, let them work independently, whether that be on a directed study or in learning centers, but in general, trust them and let them work more independently. That's it for me. Those are my 10 tips for differentiating for gifted students. Bye-bye.